Hello,
Hi. Hello.
how are you guys?
Good, how are you?
So just before we get started, I'd just like to remind the clients that we do record our consultations. So just like another heads up, it's on the form and everything, but just like a second heads up there. Um, but other than that, Normus was here today, and then I saw how the socialization went. We posted a video on Instagram. He was with more dogs and like off leash.
Yeah.
No issues. They were like there was one that was pretty eager to meet Normus and was really like in his face, and you can tell Normus was kind of like, eh. So then we backed that puppy off, and the puppy went to go play with Ellie instead. And we brought in
Okay.
another retriever. Her name is Margot. She's a lot more calmer
Okay.
and kind of is a little old. It's definitely not a puppy anymore. She's like maybe like two, I think. So she's kind of has more like she's more aware, right? Um,
Yeah.
Normus was really interested in Margot. They're sniffing a lot and kind of following each other, but you can tell he was still, not fully out of his shell or anything like that. So, like I said before, it's just going to take time, consistency, and having him realize, okay, like this place has, it's not that bad, right?
Yeah.
I think Ellie being there with him has definitely like helped him like move around at least. So that's good for her to help him with out with socialization stuff and everything like that. But yeah, go ahead and fill me in on Norris on your side, what goals you have for him and how he is in the home and all that other stuff. As you go along, I'll be writing notes down, and then we will go from there.
Okay. In the home, he's overall a really good dog. Where we have trouble with him in the house is when dogs come on TV.
Oh, okay.
He barks and will even like charge the TV to some degree. And then also, we live in a condo and there's windows on the front. And sometimes we'd like to have the door open or a window open on a nice day. And if he hears dogs outside or if he sees dogs outside, he's very reactive to that, barking usually, or if the screen door is open, kind of charging the screen door. So, our work with a previous trainer suggested that we put up like paper to cover the portion of the window to make it a less anxious space for him. So we do that now, but I don't know that it's a long-term solution.
Right.
So that reactivity to TV and then windows and outside dog noises.
Yeah, and he'll definitely react to the noise with those papers up on the wall. Like visually, he's not being stimulated, so it's definitely helped. But he still does hear
Yeah.
and react, and he'll get up there and he won't know where to direct it, but he'll get kind of like woofy and kind of like knows that something's bothering him.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so dogs and TV, reactive in the home with the blinds and everything out the window. Anything else I should know about
Yeah.
noise?
In the home, no, we don't bring other dogs in the home, but I could imagine he wouldn't like that, but we don't do that. He's great with people, so no people concerns. So nothing else there as far as walking though. So as we like leave the home and we go outside, he's very reactive to certain dogs in our neighborhood. And then sometimes all dogs or other dogs, again, when on the leash.
Okay.
So it's not all dogs all the time, but we make an effort to always cross the street. We don't pass on the sidewalk anymore, with any dogs. There's two dogs in particular that he's really reactive to, and they're reactive to him. So I think that obviously doesn't help. One is a chocolate lab and one is an Irish setter. Um, Other than that, I don't know that we've seen a really concrete pattern into who he's reactive to. I'd say maybe a little less to smaller dogs, but again, not necessarily always. So leash reactivity and just like his strength and ability to listen on the leash when he's in that heightened state is a problem. But when he's in a calm state and not anxious state, he knows to walk by our side and heel and generally listens very well. But when he's in that like heightened state or anxious state, he gets it's really hard to bring him back down.
I see. Okay. Anything else about Normus?
I would say we like take him up to Lake Forest, which is like off leash dog park, and he's generally very good out there. Like he seems very much like a different dog on and off leash, in my opinion. I mean, it's not that he doesn't have any issues with any dogs up there. I think it's just a free for all, and sometimes dogs play a little rough. But off leash up there, he seems to be really good and does well socializing with other dogs.
And he, so we do that. He runs, he comes back to us, I would say 90% of the time upon recall. But if, again, we're in that heightened state and I'm like, I need a recall right now to get him out of a situation or what I could perceive to be a situation where it could escalate, he, again, wouldn't recall in that situation all the time, or I'm not confident in that. And so I think some of it we could help him manage, where if he's playing a little rough and the other dog's kind of on the same energy level as him, I think they just keep escalating each other, which can obviously turn bad. So he comes pretty regularly when I call him off leash in that one particular environment, but I worry that if, there are times where he could get to a situation where I think it could get out of control and he doesn't recall in that situation.
And sometimes he'll just struggle to recall if he's just playing and having a lot of fun too. Like he'll be like running with another dog and then he'll just get those same blinders on, and then it's just a game of chase, and it's until he's tired or he accidentally blows by you too close and he's like, oh, you are trying to talk to me, and they're like, you have to be like right there to like get through to him when he's playing sometimes.
The other issue we have with him is like in the car, so similar to in the house. So in the car, if he sees another dog outside of the car, he's reactive to that too. So sometimes it's excitement, like when we go up to this forest preserve in Lake Forest, when we pull in, he's so excited, but it's like I can't get him to calm down, right? I can't stop the barking or the whining or any of it, and then the pulling on the leash to drag you basically into the park. So I think some comes from excitement, maybe a little bit of anxiety too, but so the car is also can be a hot button for him. If he sees dogs outside the car, or like a person on a bike sometimes sets him off and just gets him in that state. So
got it.
I think those are all the situations.
And then, how old is Normus?
3.
And then what's his breed?
He's a mix. We got him from a rescue as a puppy, but he has some Newfoundland in him, some Australian Shepherd, some
mini pincher, believe it or not.
Yeah, I mean it's a conglomeration, but the Newfoundland is kind of like his nose shape, but he also has some more energetic level dogs in there too.
Great Pyrenees, I think.
Got it. And then what else? So Don TP read at home. And how does Ellie how's Ellie doing?
Good. She has some she's much more timid than he is, and so out in the neighborhood and on the leash she's more shy about seeing other dogs on the leash. The closer we get, the better it gets, I guess I would say, where she's like, but she'll growl sometimes at other dogs or be uncertain, sometimes people too. So hers I think is more out of caution, and she wants to back away from things, so she's less shy, or less she's more timid. And then inside the house, I don't know if she hears dogs outside and reacts to that, but she likes to look out the windows too. And I don't know if she got that from Normus. So she doesn't bark at dogs on the TV or have a problem with that or anything. But there's a little bit of like similar traits of like barking at sounds from outside and things like that.
Got it. Okay. And how old is Ellie? Ellie's like, she's
like
under
7 months. Yeah.
Okay. And do you walk these two guys together or separate, or does one have a dog, the other one has another dog, or?
Yeah, we'll walk them like together, one person with each dog. We try not to take them, if we take them down together, it's really just to like pee really quick and come up, because they're not great together and they're strong. And if Norma sees another dog and all these other reasons. And so we try and walk them either just totally independently, and Ellie's way better to walk alone than she is with Normus. And yeah, or again, one of us will take each dog and walk together that way.
Got it.
And then we have a third dog.
Oh, you have a third
I
dog.
don't know if that's relevant necessarily, but he's a senior dog. He's 12. He's very easy for us for the most part. He's just old, but they all get along. They basically leave him alone. Ellie and Normus play in the house. They're very fun, they have a lot of fun together. They wrestle. They're both much more outgoing than you've probably seen them at daycare. At home, Ellie's a lot more confident at home, all those things. So
Kennedy, our third dog, is a saint. He's perfect.
Yeah.
He has no behavioral issues at all. He is a model. He's a model citizen.
Yes.
No, I think at this point, I've seen Ellie open up pretty nicely. Like she plays, like she goes all in, and I think
Good.
she's come along. For the two, Ellie, for your senior dog, how old is he? You said?
Well, he'll be 12 in March, so almost 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any goals, like would you like to walk Normus and Ellie together, or because for our training programs and stuff, I think let's say you were to follow through with an in-person program, for example. We always recommend that if you want to get the other dog trained, we can do them at the same time, so that you don't need to buy a whole new program later on. The only that would be additional would be obviously like time. So like we would have to like buy like an extra 30 minutes or something, so that we can cover both dogs and get everything completely like addressed, right, with the two.
Right.
But we'll talk about the end at the end of the consultation and stuff like that. But yeah, if it's a goal, or maybe if you're happy the way it is, where you like them separate and one at a time, with that structure, that's good too. But if you have a goal where if you want to walk them both at the same time, we can definitely work on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think so. We haven't talked about it, I guess, directly, but I would like probably Ellie to do some sort of training as well.
Sure.
And what that looks like, or how frequently, I guess we can talk about at the end, or we can talk about separately and get back to you. But I think that would be nice to be able to have one of us walking both of them with some level of control. At some point.
It would save a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure.
mean, walking 3 dogs takes
a lot of time.
45 minutes to an hour. So if we can walk 2 at the same time, yeah, great.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. Like you said, we'll talk about the options, and we'll see what you guys are comfortable with, what your preferences are. But good. Anything else I should know about the dog? So it sounds like just leash walking is one of the main priorities outside, recall as well, and then in the home, kind of tackling the reactivity and like the territorial behavior we're kind of seeing, and then the TV would be like it kind of ties with the reactivity as well. But the territorial would be like the out the window and like barking at the dogs there. Anything else after that?
No, I guess the car is probably territorial. I would guess, right? Yeah. So I think order of importance for me would probably be the leash walking is the biggest. Like reactivity on the leash is, I think, the biggest detriment we have.
No, I would say leash walking and emergency recall are equal in my mind. They're both huge like safety factors to keeping us safe and him safe. So
agree.
I would say that those both need to be fixed.
No, we would like them all fixed, I guess. But yes, so anyways, sure.
Perfect. Cool. Alrighty. So already seen, I think they're both on slip leashes, correct?
We do. We're open to a lot of different things, but yeah, they're both right now on slip leads. Partially that was what we've had with Normus for a while now. We've tried a gentle leader with him. He hates it. I originally, maybe when he was like 6 months old, we used a prong collar for a while, because that's what I used on our 12-year-old dog when he was, younger. The trainer we saw, I think, got us away from that, thinking that was adding to his anxiety. So anyways, we've been around the block with a couple different options, but they're both on slip leads right now.
Yeah, Ellie's used a harness in the past.
Right.
yeah,
Which as she gets bigger, we don't love, obviously, because they can just pull and all that stuff. So
yeah, I think I have shoulders.
Yeah. And you guys are aware that we train e-collars, correct?
yes.
Yep.
Okay. So slip leashes are a good tool. We use those leashes here when we're handling our daycare dogs. That's just our first go-to. With prong collar, when it comes to making behaviors worse, sometimes it can happen because, let's say Normus is at a 10 on his energy level, full-blown reactive, he's lunging, that's a 10, right? And you have the prong collar on, and maybe your strongest yank or pull is only a 7. All
Okay.
you're really going to be doing is either agitating him or just annoying him at that point, right? Because you can't override him when he's at a 10,
Okay.
right? So sometimes when we see that happening, when a dog's in that state, it can come out where it's like now he's getting even worse because you're trying to stop the behavior, right?
Okay.
And when you're trying to stop a behavior that's been going on for a while, you're going to see some sort of backlash or fight against that because he's trying to continue it while you're trying to stop it, right?
Okay.
So sometimes owners will say, prong collar made it worse, or he's making it more reactive. Technically, no, it's only because you're trying to stop it. That's why. And with prong collar, like I said, sometimes it can be annoying because if you don't have the technique and stuff like that, or just the level of strength with it, right? The dogs will just override it, right? It happens a lot with like our bully breeds, and funny enough, our Labradors, because the Labs are so happy-go-lucky. They're just like, what's going on, right? Sometimes clients do say, like, for the first few weeks, prong collar was great. It was working like really well, and then the dog got used to it or was realizing, oh, this actually isn't that bad, and then they override it with reactivity, pulling, or whatever it is, right? So prong collar is a good tool. You can still teach heel, stay, sit down, come place with it. However, when it comes to like off-leash recall, obviously can't happen. And then, like I said, it can be a hit or miss when it comes to reactivity and leash pulling. Depends how driven the dog is for the bird or for the other dog or to go home. All these things, right? It's also very nuanced, right? So a lot of technical skill with prong collar. That's why we don't offer programs with it, because we already know that the what's it called? Like the ceiling of it, for success is more of like a 40% ish around there. Like I said, some dogs are like, you put the prong collar on, they're like phenomenal, right? But then the other dogs are just like, this ain't that bad, right? The reason why it is successful is because the way it's shaped, it's supposed to mimic a dog bite, right? So dogs are physical animals. So if Normus, was in the playpen and maybe that first golden retriever who kept like licking his mouth, if he continued it and we never stepped in, Normus might feel like he might have to handle the situation, right? How do you think Normus might handle that situation?
I think he'd probably, if or when he reacts, I think, yeah, it's like a snarl or it's like a warning snap or however, so something like that. Yeah.
Call a correction, right? He would correct Willie, letting Willie know, hey, buddy, like I just got here and you're over my face, right? So he would have to handle that himself. Willie would receive the snap and realize, oh, he doesn't like this, and then he'll go bother someone else, right?
Okay.
So Normus can't tell Willie, leave it off, no, sit, right? He can't, the dogs don't have language, obviously, right? So when they're communicating, physicality is occurring, right? Prong collar is physicality, right? So you're using dog language with a dog, your results kind of come faster with those scenarios or whatever training you're trying to do there. So that's like the psychology behind a prong collar, and where it comes from and why we do get success with this, because it's their language. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And dogs have been receiving physicality since they've been puppies, like tiny puppies, right? There's a really popular YouTube video. It's a Korean retriever entering a playpen, and she's entering the playpen and she sees like 10 puppies and they're all running up on her, and she stiffens up, you hear her growl, and she snaps at 3, boom, 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 and then go, "Meow," right? And then they run away, like all 10, and they lay down and it's calm and quiet, right? So from day one, the mother is already laying down the law, letting them know, hey, you can't come up to me overly excited in this manner. Be more respectful, right? Give me space, okay? So sometimes clients will come to us saying, we can't correct our puppy because the puppy's just being a puppy. You absolutely can correct puppies. The mother has already done it before you even got the puppy, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then after prong collar, the next tool that has most success is the e-collar. What do you guys know about electronic collars?
Nothing. So you should tell us
Yeah.
from the ground up.
It's commonly referred to as shock collar, right? We try to avoid that term. It sounds very like negative. And although the collar is electric, it's not so much it's not electricity. So it's not like flowing through the dog's body. It's literally a little box with 2 contact points. And one of those 2 contact points are touching is what it'll be contracting. The technology is very similar to a TENS unit. So if you've ever been to physical therapy or had a chiropractor apply a machine where it just contracts your muscle if you have anything torn here. We actually, Jesse, the owner, had a client a while ago, and she was a chiropractor. She said, oh, this is the same feeling my clients feel when I'm working with them, right? It's also, we started up the same, very similar to how they do their clients. So with their clients, they'll start low and they work their way up, and they'll tell the client, hey, let me know what's too uncomfortable, right? The client will let them know, okay, that's pretty uncomfortable. They lower it 2 levels down and they let the machine do its work on the muscle, whatever, right? Very similar to how we do our dogs, right? We start low and the dog's going to tell us what number is working for that dog, right? From knowing Normus or any dog, right? You can never really guess the number. It's all depending on just how they perceive it, right? So sometimes, we get a little dog, right? Tiny dog who's like, at those higher numbers, because that's just what they feel and that's what they respond to. And then we'll get like these Great Danes who are super low numbers and it just doesn't make any sense, but that's just what their response is to, right?
What's the spectrum of the numbers of the range?
Yeah. So if you've looked online, you might see collars that go up. You might see like a 8-level e-collar, right?
Okay.
The brand we use is called Dogtra, and they have 127 levels. Okay.
Well,
don't think we have 100 more levels than the 8-level e-collar. Their maximum level 8 and our maximum 127, they're equal. Okay. We just have so many more numbers to be more specific to the dog's personality, the breed, and what we're trying to work and accomplish, right? Because those 8-level e-collars are stupid cheap. And as you probably can imagine, let's say we're using it with Normus, 5, he's, vocalizing, he's yelping, it's too much power. But then 4, he completely ignores it. Well, now you're stuck. Your dog's going to either be yelping or ignoring it, right? For a dog trial, let's say 30 is too high, but then 20 is too low. We can go to 25, 22, 26. We can be very specific, so it's not overwhelming, but we're also, getting things kind of done at that moment, right? Ultra also, I mean, as I've used more e-collars, as I've been working here, and Jesse's been using other brands too, and he's stayed with Dogtra the longest because even the stimulation also feels different, right? Dogtra has a very duller stimulation, so dogs who are anxious, right? If they're on another brand's called Eco Technologies, is like the second best brand out there. Ours first would be Dogtra, but on Eco Technologies, Jesse was finding out that on Eco Technologies, anxious dogs were getting more whiny and more vocal, and then the aggressive dogs were also getting more vocal. He switched them all to Dogtra, big difference, right? It's just how the stim is delivered that the dog is able to kind of more, how do I say, it's a better way for them to process the stimulation because it's not so sharp, right? It's
Okay.
more dull. So that's why we go with Darktra, just because of Jesse's experiences and, from what we've seen with the other e-collars, that the Darktra is very simple to use, and gives you a wide range of numbers to use as well. Any questions so far about the technology?
No, I guess one of my questions is, and maybe we talk about this later, but just, when we decide what kind of training is appropriate for Normus, like in what forum, do we start with just slip lead and decide later if he needs e-collar, or what we're talking about is like, we're putting, this training would mean we're putting an e-collar on him and work with you that way?
Yeah, so usually for our training programs, we don't do like we only build up to e-collar if it was a puppy, right? So one time we did have a puppy, it was a Doberman European line. So those are like the big working ones. She came to us at like 3-4 months, 5 months-ish, I think, around there. So, and the owner wanted the puppy to be off-leash trained, e-collar, everything. She wanted everything. But for a puppy like that, since they're not at that age to kind of understand e-collar pressure, we started that puppy on prong collar, and then week 2 we started e-collar, and then it was a lot more smoother, right? With Normus, we don't have to do that. We don't need to play at the slip leash or prong collar. We can go straight into e-collar, right? Because I already know the e-collar is going to guarantee 90 to 100% of that reliable obedience up to off-leash obedience right away, right? So really, there's no time, there's no reason to waste time with these other tools. If I already know these aren't going to work, I might as well just go jump straight to the e-collar, right? And then we've never had any issues with that, right? Making that jump, dogs get it pretty quickly. Owners see the results right away, so it keeps them motivated, and they want to learn more. And it's just we make it stupid simple for you guys, right? Because we're trying to, we're training you as dog owners, not trainers, right? So there's a lot of information. You'll hear trainers telling owners that just doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything to these owners because they're not trainers, right? We're going to be teaching as dog owners, and you're going to find that it's really, really simple using the method that we teach you guys, and with the e-commerce stuff like that. But does that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah.
So yeah, all programs here go straight to e-collar unless the puppy is under 6 months. Then we'll kind of do like the positive reinforcement, the food stuff, and like the puppy programs for that. But after 6 months, it's usually all e-collar from there. What else? So yeah, the brand we use is called Darktra. 127 levels. There's different models within that brand. I already have the model I know we're going to use for Normus, and we'll talk about that at the end. They're waterproof. You get a mile to a half-mile long range, so you get that distance. There's no batteries needed. It's all just rechargeable. And the batteries, if you don't turn it off, the battery can last like up to like 3-4 days, at least for me. So it lasts a long time. They're very durable, simple to use. What else about it?
Do they wear them all the time, or for for him at home, and like, is it just something he lives in, or is it not you're going out, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. Usually the e-car's only on when you need it.
Okay.
So dogs who have issues in the home, I had a client one time whose dog would stare at shadows or glares. I can't remember. It was one of the two, but at sunset, it would trigger something, right? And the dog would literally stare at the wall and just like drool. Like the dog was just zoned out, right? By class 3, as we were kind of going over structured walking and attacking that reactivity, and the dog was very skeptical of strangers and kind of snapping at them and growling at them, right? Once we were addressing that, the dog was a lot more calmer outside because we were adding structure, rules, and discipline outside, right? By class 3, I asked, "Oh yeah, how's that shadow thing going?" And then she said that the dog just stopped, right? So there might be some behaviors that might just go away on its own, and if they don't, that's totally fine. We'll just have to address that separately. So basically, it's on when you need it, right? So if we're going out for walks, it should be on because, let's say the reactivity is gone. We can go for a walk and he sees a dog, he doesn't care, we're good, right?
Okay.
Even at that point, right? Technically, you graduated, right? Even after graduation, he should still have the collar on. Okay. Now the collar would only be on for emergencies. So we can't predict what's going to happen in this walk we're going to go on. So maybe you're walking and a car backfires, a firework goes off and it's not in the middle of the 4th of July, or maybe an off-leash dog comes out and then you have to get control over Normus because the dog is going berserk or something, right? Something happens where you're just not expecting, right? We've heard a lot of horror stories where owners fall to the ground, prong collars fall apart, leashes slip, leashes break, stuff like that, right? So the e-collar would be there as more of like a backup, right? Because when dogs are in flight mode or they're just running away, they're literally thinking kill or be killed. Like they're running for their life. So sometimes, depending on how consistent it is, Normus come, he might not want to come because he's thinking, I'm gonna run for my life, right? So the e-collar would override that flight mode, make him do the 180 and come back to you so you have more control there, right? So for those reasons, it'll be on. Like my dogs, they're 4 years old already. One of them I've had on e-collar since she was like 4 months old, 5 months. And maybe like I tap the button outside like 2 times a month, like here and there, right? But it's just on just in case, right? I'm not actively always tapping her, right? It's just there in case because I did all the hard work in the beginning, right? Now in the home, let's say he's becoming more calmer and he's not so stressed out and we're kind of getting the reactivity under control and you're noticing he's pretty much calmer. There's just moments where he barks, but you have some sort of tool or knowledge to address that, then you don't need the e-collar on. He's fine with humans, you don't need the e-collar on. At bedtime, you don't need the e-collar on. Basically, the collar is only on when you need it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Cool. Any other questions?
Not yet.
Got it. So that's just like the technology with the e-collar and the brand we use and when he'll be wearing it. Introducing the e-collar and kind of getting him started with the the new form of pressure and stuff like that. Our first exercise will be called heel. Heel is our walking command. Heel in our style means walk with me, stay with me, and sit when I step. So when I take 5 steps, Normus takes 5 steps. If I take 10, he takes 10. And then when you come to stop, he's to automatically sit, no words, right shoulder parallel to your leg, loose leash in any environment. I don't care how many dogs are running around. That's how strict it needs to be. Okay. Now, there's a few reasons why this is the first thing we teach. Obviously, the obvious reason would be the obedience, right? Having a loose leash walk, no pulling, he's here at our side consistently, right? The other reason why this is our first to go to is because we need to teach Normus what the e-collar is before we dive into anything in the home and before we dive into recall and stuff like that, right? Because usually when dogs first feel this with no context, nothing, their first reaction is to get away from it. They want to move and get away, right? So we need to teach them that that's not what it means. It means to go to you guys, stay with you, and kind of follow you because you are the goal, right? This is how you turn the pressure off, right? So he's learning how this goes away when it comes, what he needs to do to make this feeling go away, right? A lot of times people assume that e-collar training is when, dog does a bad behavior. Hello? Oh, okay, sorry. Dog does bad behavior and then you blast them, right? That's incorrect. Doesn't really address the behavior because if the dog has no understanding of the e-collar and you're just blasting them, they're confused. They're like, where did it come from? When is it going to come back? All these questions are kind of popping out, right? So once he has an understanding of how the pressure comes and goes and that he is the one in control of it, everything after that is just very smooth, right? Now, so again, obviously, the obedience part, him understanding the e-collar, and then also your reactivity. So how this addresses your reactivity, right? Because a lot of times, clients question, how does obedience fix reactivity. Do you guys know the difference between obedience and behavior in dogs?
I would guess, I mean, the idea of obedience is to override their inclination or their behavior that they want to do in a moment. That's obedience is overcoming that.
Close. So technically, we would never use obedience to fix behavior,
Okay.
right? So like for humans, our
Mhm.
obedience is math, science, English, social studies. Our behavior is don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, don't kill, right? So if I have a problem killing people, right, teaching me math skills or reading or social studies is not going to change anything, right? You would have to use behavior to address behavior. Same thing with the dogs. Obedience, heel, stay, sit down, come, place. Behavior, don't jump, don't bite, don't growl, don't, react, right? So heel and sit and all these things don't connect to reactivity. But the way we're teaching our heel, the psychology behind it, and using the e-collar affects the reactivity. Because if we're at the correct number where Normus is like concerned about it and it matters to him, right, the training will be effective and he'll care about it. So basically the idea is that he cares about you so much and wants to be next to you that technically nothing else should matter to him, right? Because the e-collar is physicality, it's their language. This is something that's actually actively touching him and it's real, it's there, right? The dog across the street, not touching him. So it's like if you're staring at a ghost, right? The ugliest ghost, but you know that ghost can't touch you. But then you have someone over here pointing a gun at you. Like, what are you going to be more concerned about? The physical, you'll be more concerned about the physical, real life thing, right? Same thing here, that the heel is so important to him that nothing else matters. So if anything, reactivity should be, there have been some cases where the reactivity just goes away. There's been other cases where I had a dog who had was reactive to everything: birds, squirrels, humans, dogs, everything, right? First lesson, we taught heel. Then I see her second class, and she said that a bird flew right in front of them and he did not lunge. So that went away in itself, because there is like a what kind of goes away first, like a spectrum, right? So usually if there's any human reactivity, that just goes away on its own. We don't need to address that like directly. Then it goes calm dogs. Then it goes like moving objects. So like, birds, squirrels, runners, joggers. And then it goes other reactive dogs. And then the last thing, which you can't really kind of predict, is you turn the corner as a dog there, right? That's like the last thing that we kind of have to work with, because again, you can't predict it. It's going to be a surprise, and it's just kind of like how to handle that situation at the last, right? So that's kind of how the progress goes when we're trying to address, reactivity in a dog. Now the client I was working with who had reactivity of everything, the last thing we had to address was other reactive dogs, right? Because the moment that other dog looked at her dog, boom, he just triggered, right? So then we were creating scenarios. I was walking with her through the park, and then we were getting that addressed. So now he's able to just look at dogs. The dogs look at him. He has no issue. Now the next step, because his reactivity was so severe, is now we have to see, can we pass a dog, right? Like head on, like this.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
very
On the
hard, right?
sidewalk passing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The dog can pass the dog can sit and watch dogs pass. He can do everything like that. But the moment he's doing this, it's a little difficult for him. So that's like our last thing to tackle right now.
Okay.
That's kind of how progress works there for Normus, the reactivity. Any questions about the heel and like what we're trying to work with when we teach the heel?
No.
Okay. After that, then we kind of, like you said, work on your priorities. So priority will be leash walking and reactivity. We'll see how the reactivity is going. Once that reactivity is starting to be more under control and it's going well, then we can go ahead and dive into like recall, the in-home stuff, and everything else that you're kind of looking to address. What else? And then the car too. But usually we'll play it by ear. We'll see, we'll see how, like, if we, what goes away on its own, what's being better, because and then we'll kind of address things as they like stick or they go away. That's fine too. Any questions so far?
So when you introduce the e-collar to him, like how do you do that? I mean, do you ask him to do something? When he doesn't, then he gets a buzz on whatever level, or is there like a smaller intro like how does that introduction work?
Yeah, we won't be asking him to do anything. It's more of just starting. First, what we do is we find what number we're gonna be working with, right? And Norris will tell us, right? And then they'll be explained like first lesson on what that looks like. But once we see that feeling, now we're just gonna start making him doing the walking stuff. So that initial feeling of finding the number, right? We're not really doing anything. We're just kind of focusing on what his body is doing and what he's thinking about. Because once we get to a number that's good, then we start with the walking. We're not using any words at first, just because we want to make sure the behavior we're creating is consistent, right? Once the behavior.
Sorry, can I interrupt you? So when you're like figuring out what number is right for him, are you starting at like 1 and then like just shocking him essentially until you get a certain reaction, or you have an idea of what kind of number he would start at because of his weight? Or
they said that no, we'll start low and just keep going up.
So you start at 1.
Yeah, so what we do is we do it in increments of 5s. So we go 5, 10, 15, 20, and then we find the number there, right?
Just like sitting there, like taking it
correct.
until okay.
Because if we were saying sit and he didn't sit, right?
Yeah.
We're using the e-collar. He doesn't know in that moment the e-collar means sit.
Yeah.
But we first have to teach him that with through leash pressure, right? The leash is going to be your best friend at first. Shaping behaviors, your leash is there. Through pressure, the dog, we're teaching commands through leash work and pressure. Okay, because if you're using, treats to train stuff like sit and down, but the moment he stands up and you tap that, he doesn't know that e-collar means to lay back down, because he was never taught through e-collar to lay down.
Right.
Does that make sense? So a lot of things that you'll be seeing is us using the e-collar and leash, and you guys, your body, right? Because that's what's going to be a clear picture for him, right? Words don't mean anything right away. Okay. So it's more about like teaching what we want, and then once we see what we're wanting, then we can call it something that he knows. Okay, that means this is heel, what we're doing right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions?
So in this process, I guess whichever option we choose, do you teach him these fundamentals before you bring us in? So you're sort of teaching him the e-collar and how that works before we get involved?
Yeah, so for programs, we have the in-person, board and train, and day current train. Of these 3, do you already have one in mind that you want to work with, or you want me to explain the programs to you and how they work?
I think we're looking for probably, I guess you've met Normus, so we're open to your recommendation. And what's best and most effective, I think. And then we can talk from there, obviously, about cost and everything too. But
yeah, so
I guess we'd like to say first and foremost. So, but if that's not helpful, then we'd like to know.
Oh wait, what did you say? I didn't catch that. Sorry.
We're happy to be involved. Like, we'd like to be hands-on and be there, but if it's more effective for him to learn without us there first, we're open to that too. So I guess we're open to recommendations.
Cool. So actually, it is more effective if you guys are there. Okay, we always push for in-person because it's more in-person programs. You guys are doing the work yourself. Okay, so with the in-person, it is verbal instruction. I never touch Normus.
Okay.
Class 1, we meet either at the facility, or if it's nicer weather, we could meet at Oz Park. That's the park we usually operate, is Oz and Palmer Square Park we usually work with. But then you guys are starting with him. I never touch dogs. Sometimes I need to touch a dog if it's like something's like out of the ordinary, right? But that's very rare. So it's usually you guys kind of doing that. I'm just verbally instructing you, because at the end of the day, like you said, it'll be you and Normus, not me, right? I won't be there. For in-person, I'll just start with that program since I mentioned it right now. We have the 3-week, 6-week, 9, and 12. From everything I'm gathering, since you want to address heel, walking, recall, and then the in-home, bare bones minimum. If we did a 6-week class, how that would look, it would be 2 classes on heel. And this is not in order. 2 classes on a recall, and then 4, 5, 6. We have 3 classes left, right? One would be like an in-home session, and then you have 2 left. The 2 could be, because what else was there? The car, if it's still a struggle, and you have 1 left over. And that one you can save, right? So usually when clients have a program and we have 1 class left, I tell them, save it till you need it, use the tools and knowledge you've had or, been taught, practice, use it throughout life. And then maybe you're finding that something is weird or not right. Then we can have that class and we can clarify, or something happens, something's different, right? So that's the 6-week program. For 9-week, it kind of gives us more wiggle room, and you have a little bit more like practice with it. So it's more like obviously, if you get more classes, the better the dog will be, right? So for 9, it'll be heel, recall, in-home, car. So that's already 6 classes there, and then we can cover like a stationary command. So owners who like 9-week program, they're looking for more stationary control and more control overall. So like maybe they want to take their dogs to a patio or like a restaurant, right? After the 9-week program is the 12-week program. 12-week is for clients who want everything, right? They want off-leash control because they go hikes every other weekend and they want all the obedience, right? So that's kind of how the programs are laid out. 6-week is more for clients who want to walk the dog around the block, around the neighborhood, no issues. Then they let their dog run around off leash for a little bit, recall, and then they go home, right? For obedience wise, that's kind of how it's layered out. Does that make sense? Cool. Usually it's an hour once a week. So for example, this is an example, Mondays at 8:15, 6 times for an hour, right? On the calendar, you technically get 7 slots if you were to choose 6. The 7th slot is like, life happens, you got to reschedule, you got to cancel something, you have an extra slot reserved for you, but once you use that extra slot, you'll have to wait to get back on the calendar, okay? But that's the in-person. If we need to meet at the facility, then we have a training floor upstairs and downstairs, so we have the room and space, and we obviously have dogs here, so maybe Normus isn't reactive here when he sees a dog when we're handling him, but the moment when you guys are here handling him, he gets reactive, because that can also come from like territorial behavior, since he's with his his pack, that it triggers that reactiveness there. So that's something we could see here maybe. Any questions about the in-person program? Cool. Board and train, daycare and train. Would you guys like me to talk about those programs?
I don't think so.
Okay. E-call is very transferable, right? It's very simple with the dog and you guys. Sometimes clients wonder, is the dog gonna hate me because I'm electrocuting them, right? No, the dog won't hate people. It won't make dogs hate dogs even more, or you guys, because Normus doesn't know you're the one pressing the button, because there is nothing physically connected to you and the feeling. Versus prong collar, then the dog knows you're the one doing, because it's attached, right? So Jesse's never seen throughout his career dogs hate people unless there was like something already there, right? So like if the dog had a history of biting people, and then throughout the e-collar training the dog bit someone, it wasn't because of the e-collar training, the dog was already biting people, right? So it doesn't create new behaviors, it doesn't create aggression. Those things need to be there already for it to come out, right? The other question we get a lot is, what was the other one? Oh no, I think we covered that. It was how long does a collar stay on and everything like that. I feel like there was something else I said that I would talk about at the end here. Might have been in it. But no, I think he'd be great in it. As for Ellie, I'll leave that up to you if you want to get her trained at the same time. I think it would be very beneficial for you guys. All we would need to do is if you did the in-person for the first and second class, I think, is when we have to add 30 minutes to each class so that we have time to cover both dogs. That's the
Okay.
only thing that changes when you add a second dog. We don't the program doesn't come with e-collars. You'll have to buy those on your own.
Okay.
Right now we've sold out, so I'm not sure when the next time we'll be getting our e-collars back in stock. Because it used to be easier, just buy it here, we bring it to you, or you just pick it up, right? But after this consultation, my assistant Tina will be reaching out to you guys, and she's going to be sending you the e-collars I recommend. Since you're already signed up in Ginger and you've already signed the agreement forms, you're already a step ahead. So basically, we can go ahead and just dive into scheduling and payments and stuff like that, right? So again, she'll send you the e-collar I recommend for you. And I will also have her set up a walking two dogs. So with e-collars, you have two options. You can either have two collars and two remotes, right? So you both can walk a dog at the same time. Or, and then these remotes only control one dog. Okay, so basically, if you wanted to walk both of them, it would have to be both of you guys.
Right.
Or three options, sorry. The second option would be two collars and then two remotes. But these specific two remotes can address or affect both dogs, right? So if one of you guys wanted to take two dogs for the walk and it's just only one of you, you would just take one remote, but they control both dogs, right? So it's never like, you know, where's Ellie's remote? Where's Normus remote, right? All these things, right? So yeah, it's just two options there, right? You can either have separate remotes for the two dogs or two remotes that control both dogs, right? Whatever's easier for you, whatever makes sense for you guys. We've seen clients start with something and they usually always end up with the remotes that control both dogs and then two of them. So then they're always, you know, if the remote's there, you can kind of address both dogs and it's be easy and simpler for the owner. But Tina will send all that information for you to see if you decide to have Ellie being trained with Normus at the same time. What else?
And then I just want to make sure I understand. So if we did train them both, there's not an option to work with Ellie still just on the slip lead? Because I don't think we're interested yet or ready. I don't know that we feel like she needs the e-collar. So I think we'd want to do some training with her, but not ready for e-collar with her.
Sure.
So not train them together then, or could we do slip lead for her and collar for Normus?
Yeah. So we wouldn't be able to do that. We don't train a slip leash just because.
Okay.
Sorry. Just because with the food stuff and the slip leashes, like he won't be happy with it because it's just not as effective, right? With e-collar, you know, you can try out with Normus and maybe you're like, oh wow, like he's learning a lot, we're getting stuff done. Let's bring Ellie into this, right? Then you can kind of wait and see how he takes to it, and then you can see if you want to have Ellie on it, right? That's up to you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Cool. So I think that's all. I think I covered everything. I've seen him be able to settle. He did come in day one, a little reactive, but then, I mean, sometimes he'll howl. I think why was he howling today? He was howling today because no one was walking around in the kennel room for a little bit. So we heard him howl. He was howling because he saw the cameras. But that's the most he'll do. Like he doesn't bark at dogs or anything like that. He kind of just like howling for, I guess, like attention, I think, but that's all.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions about the e-collar training programs?
I don't think so. No.
So just be a lookout for that follow-up email from Tina, and if something else comes up or you think of another question, you know, throughout that space and time, go ahead and just email me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But other than that, it's very nice speaking with you guys. We enjoy having Normus and Ellie here. We think that, you know, they'll be opening up soon, especially since today the Normus is able to like loosely walk around, like, you know, other dogs, new friends and stuff like that. But other than that, just keep an eye out for that follow-up email.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank
for
you. Yeah, thanks so
Good night.
much. Have a good night. Bye.